It started as an ordinary Monday morning, the kind where I downed my coffee on autopilot while scrolling through. Email's work at our firm was predictably structured with schedules that left little room for spontaneity. Jonathan, my boss, was the epitome of professionalism, sharp-focused and always one step ahead. At least that's how I'd always seen him until the day everything shifted. The morning had passed in a blur of meetings and deadlines. By lunch, I was grateful for the reprieve, escaping to the break room for a few stolen moments of quiet. That's when I noticed Jonathan hovering near the coffee machine, his tie slightly loosened, an uncharacteristic look of weariness softening his usually polished demeanor. Rough morning, I asked, keeping me tone casual. He glanced up, startled, before offering a wry smile. You could say that the backer account is proving more challenging than anticipated. I nodded sympathetically, pouring a fresh cup of coffee. If anyone can handle it, it's you. Our eyes met briefly, and for a fleeting moment there was something unspoken in his gaze, something that made me pulse quicken, but just as quickly he looked away, clearing his throat and thanking me before retreating to his office. The day took an unexpected turn during the afternoon leadership meeting. The boardroom was its usual hive of activity, papers rustling, keyboards clicking, and the low hum of discussion filling the air. I'd been reviewing notes on our quarterly performance when Jonathan called for a break. Claire, could you stay for a moment? He asked, his tone measured but firm. I glanced up, surprised. My colleagues filed out, leaving the two of us alone. The door clicked shut, and the sudden quiet felt almost oppressive. Jonathan leaned against the edge of the conference table, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. I wanted to talk to you about your proposal for the new client outreach strategy, he began, his voice steady. It's impressive. I felt a flush of pride at this praise, but tempered it with professionalism. Thank you, I put a lot of thought into it. He nodded, his gaze a lingering. That's why I wanted to speak with you. You've been going above and beyond lately, Claire. It hasn't gone unnoticed. There was a pause, a charged silence that seemed to stretch longer than it should. I tried to fill it with words, but nothing came. Jonathan's intensity was palpable, his usual controlled demeanor giving way to something more vulnerable. I admire your dedication, he continued, stepping closer, and your insight. It's rare to find someone with your intuition and drive. My breath hitched, a mix of nerves and curiosity washing over me. His compliments felt different this time carrying a weight that was tenderly professional. I searched his expression for clarity, but what I found was a complexity that left me both intrigued and unsettled. As the week progressed, I couldn't shake the memory of that meeting. Jonathan hadn't crossed any explicit lines, but there had been an undeniable shift in our dynamic. It was as though a door had opened, revealing the possibility of something I hadn't dared to consider. Our interactions took on a subtle new energy. His compliments became more frequent, his glances lingering just a moment longer than necessary. I found myself noticing things about him I hadn't before, the way his voice softened when he addressed me, the rare moments of vulnerability behind his competent facade. One evening, as I worked late finishing a presentation, Jonathan appeared in the doorway of my office. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, his tie slightly loose and burning the midnight oil. He said, his tone light, but his gaze intense. I laughed softly, gesturing toward the mountain of papers on my desk, just trying to keep up. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The quiet click of the latch sent a ripple of anticipation through me. CLA, he said, his voice lower now. I've been meaning to talk to you. I looked up, setting my pen down. About, he hesitated, his expression conflicted. About us. My heart raced. Us, there's a connection between us, said, his words deliberate. I know you feel it too. Jonathan's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I know you feel it too. For a moment, all I could hear was the soft hum of the office lights. My thoughts tangled, each one pulling me in a different direction. Denial, acceptance, fear, but beneath it all there was a current of undeniable truth. He wasn't wrong. I had felt something too. Jonathan, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. This isn't, I know, he interrupted, his tone softer now. This isn't how it's supposed to be, but sometimes life doesn't follow the rules, does it? I looked away, the weight of his words sinking in. He took a step closer, his presence filling the small office. When I glanced back at him, his expression was raw, open, in a way I'd never seen before. CLA, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. But I can't ignore this anymore. I haven't felt this way about anyone in a long time. I swallowed hard, torn between the walls I built around myself and the part of Met hat wanted to leap over them. We worked together, I said, my voice firmer now. There are consequences. I'm not asking for anything, replied. I just needed you to know how I feel. His honesty was disarming, and for a moment I saw not my boss, but a man, vulnerable, human, flawed. The lines between professional and personal blurred further, and I knew that whatever happened next, there was no going back. The next day at work felt surreal. John and I avoided each other, the tension between us palpable. I threw myself into my tasks, hoping to drown out the storm of emotion swirling inside me, but every time I caught a glimpse of him in the hallway or heard his voice in a meeting, my resolve wavered. That evening, as I packed up to leave, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jonathan. Can we talk just for a moment? I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. My better judgment screamed at me to ignore it, but me heart wouldn't let me. Against my better judgment, I replied, okay. We met in the park near the office, the fading light casting long shadows across the grass. Jonathan was already there, his Hand shoved into his pockets as he paced near a bench. When he saw me he stopped, his expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. Thank you for coming, he said. I nodded, folding me arms against the cool evening breeze. This has to stop, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. Whatever this is, it's too complicated, I know, he said quickly, but I can't pretend it doesn't exist, I sighed, feeling the weight of the truth. Between us, Jonathan, this could ruin everything for both of us. You understand the risks, he said, stepping closer. But sometimes the risk is worth it. His words hit me like a wave, washing over my carefully constructed defenses. For all my caution, I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward him. The way he seemed to see me in a way no one else did. I don't know if I can do this, I admitted, my voice trembling. He reached out, his hand brushing mine. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver through me. I'm not asking for anything more than your honesty, he said. Do you feel the same way? I looked up at him, my heart pounding. Yes, I whisper, but that doesn't mean it's right. In the weeks that followed, Jonathan and I navigated the delicate balance between professional and personal boundaries. There were stolen moments, a glance across the room, a brief touch as we passed each other in the hallway that spoke volumes. We didn't act on our feelings, but the connection between us grew stronger, unspoken but undeniable. One evening, after another late night at the office, Jonathan appeared in my doorway. His tie was loose, his sleeves rolled up, and his expression was unreadable. "I'm leaving the company," he said, his words catching me off guard. What, I said, standing up. "Why, it's the only way this can work," he said simply. "I can't be your boss and be honest about how I feel." The room spun as his words sank and he was willing to give up everything for me. "You didn't have to do this," I said, my voice break. "I do," he said, stepping closer, "because I can't keep pretending that what I feel for you doesn't matter." Tears filled my eyes as the magnitude of his decision hit me. He cued my face in his hands, his touch gentle but firm. "Claire, I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, I just needed you talk know how far I'm willing to go." The next day, Jonathan submitted his resignation. The office buzzed with speculation, but we kept our secret close. He packed up his belongings. I stood in the doorway of his office, torn between gratitude and guilt. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. He smiled, a mixture of sadness and hope in his eyes. "I've never been more sure of anything." As he walked out of the building for the last time, I knew that this was only the beginning of our story. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years I felt alive. Ria Dido embrace whatever came next together.